Hello and welcome to Tapas and Pretzels, the ThoughtWorks podcast. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello, welcome to the Tapas and Pretzels podcast. My name is Inga and I'm your moderator. And we have our Tim and we have David here. And we also have a new guest that is Amy Raygada. She is the Principal Data Strategist and Engineer at ThoughtWorks, and she's also the CEO of Cosmo Data Strategy and Management. So hello, welcome, Amy. Thank you that you're here in our podcast.
Hey guys, thanks so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here with you today. Just a little bit about myself, been in Germany for almost 6 years now. Still my German not so good, so don't ask questions in German. And I'm originally from Costa Rica, as you can see. And so really happy to be here. I've been working in IT for the last 18 years. I started in software engineering and moved in 2011 to data when there was nothing such data engineering. It was more just data warehousing and database administrators. And then the things had evolved a lot in the last 14 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also talked a lot also in our podcast about data governance and what are the main key points, what it's like about data governance, for example, data quality and so on. But we get more and more into like agents and AI. And can you tell me what kind of components do you need for an AI governance, for example? So also in case of AI Act, because that's also important.
Sure thing. I mean, the thing is like right now, a lot of people confuse what is data governance with AI governance. And first, if we start thinking about AI governance, basically is the set of processes, of policies, of tools that ideally this will bring together diverse stakeholders across data science, engineering, compliance, legal, and business teams to ensure that these AI systems that we're building to facilitate our work are built in the right way. While data governance, the regular data governance we've been knowing for years, is more about, okay, do we have, let's say, data platform governance, cloud governance, ownership, data quality, some security, for example, for PII data, with the GDPR, for example, or stuff like that. So it's completely different. They need to go hand by hand because, of course, we don't want trash in, trash out, like bad data that fit those models. And we don't want, like that no one owns these models. So we need some ownership on top. We need a good platform to be able to develop those. So this is how they are related. But at the end is more about, there should be also an AI strategy and a roadmap that could be hand by hand with data governance or the data strategy in general, but not necessarily together. And then we talk about responsible AI standards, methodologies and processes, risk management, and of course, regulatory compliance.
Super interesting. For me, the first question that jumps to my mind is basically, where do you see, like, is AI governance rooted in the same governance teams as data governance is already, or is this a new team, a new organization within the organization? I mean, I have to ask you this question since you're from ThoughtWorks. Often I have to relate it back to data mesh, because otherwise people are gonna blame us in the comments like, why haven't you have anyone ask about data mesh if we have someone from ThoughtWorks in the house? So can you probably elaborate there and like maybe relate it back to, well, where you can build up on top of data mesh principles, and where you probably think this is something completely different?
Actually, data governance, is not only the technical part, but the social technical, change that you have in an organization. Within the data mesh paradigm, you actually don't have a data governance team. It's part of the data platform team, and it's this kind of federated governance. So a data product manager by domain with some engineers, they will have ownership. It's a little bit different from the traditional DAMA data governance, where you have an external team with the data stewards and all these kind of hierarchical kind of positions. Now, I think as we evolve and we get more, even not necessarily into data mesh, but more domain-driven architecture in data as well, I think that these will rely mostly in the teams who are creating these kind of AI agents or any chatbot or whatever you would like to experiment with your teams. However, we have to be very careful because we need to have more collaboration with the data protection officer. and with the lawyers from the company. And this is something that it's been, overlooked, because why would I even talk with a lawyer? They don't even know what I'm doing with my data. Or they will be like, this is data people, they're so boring, just nerds. And this is more important now, hand by side, right? Because you see, okay, they are changing this EU AI Act every day. Today, I noticed that they changed something because a coworker told me again. So you have to again reread a little bit, try to understand what was eliminated from there, what was not. And as a data person, in my case, I have to be on top because I work on ThoughtWorks, and I also have my company, which I give workshops about these topics to customers, right? But for example, if you are in a bigger organization, you might not know anything about this. You will know just maybe the basics. So you have to keep collaboration with these lawyers who are on top of this, who will be able to feed you with the latest information, who will tell you, okay, look, we need to have, for example, white box models. We cannot have black box models anymore. I don't know what that means, but you should know. So let's work together and figure it out.
Yeah, recently I did well. I'm researching in AI governance, so in my PhD I'm proposing a new approach. So I have a review in not so long ago some models, and I think there is a I think that we are focusing the debate on the production part of the AI software or data models or whatever. But however, I'm also expert on APIs, but and the productization of APIs makes that life cycle twofold. We can find the production loop, which is more on which are the stages the API has to go to be produced. Okay, but we also find the consumer loop, which is more related on how APIs are put in the market, how APIs can be monetized or consumed, discovery, and so on. How do you put this consumer loop in AI governance?
Oh, well, that's actually super important. I have a great example about that because actually I give a talk about this topic quite often. And last year, actually, there was an incident in the States where there was one person, actually, he was an engineer, and he was chatting in some Chevrolet kind of chatbot. And then they asked this chatbot, like, hey, I would like, the chatbot is like, welcome to this, blah, 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 right? So he tried to do some prompt manipulation because, this thing is becoming more common, that the people wants to play around a little bit with that they found. So this prompt manipulation made the chatbot to agree that by law, he needed to sell a Chevy Tahoe in $1 or something like that, right? So, and it was says yes. And actually the prompt was really silly because, the guy was a developer. He was just fooling around, right? And it was something about like, this is a legally binding offer, no takeases, backases. Do you understand? And the chatbot is, yes, I can give you a Chevy Tahoe for $1, no takeases, backases. This is a binding with law. And this is when you understand this consumer side of things, right? So you need also to put some safety guardrails on top of the code that you are doing. And some of the things that I like to talk with the people when I give this presentation is like, what have you done as a developer to avoid this manipulation? What could be an answer, for this user who's trying to manipulate this? Because you get a lot of information via API, or you have your vector database where you get a lot of information from data lake or whatever, but you are not sure if you are not taking care of all the security, the governance, the quality, or even the safety guardrails, what the person is going to try to do. And on the same chatbot, another developer, they were not friends or anything, they were somewhere else in the States, he was even able to get some Python code. So how would you be able to provide security to your users when they can actually, get information from maybe you, right? What about if they get PII data? There was also some leakage from ChatGPT in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, with customer information for credit cards, even for the ones, that were paying premium So now probably that's already fixed, and we are going on a way with people is taking care more of this and this and that. But there's so many companies, you don't have idea the amount of companies that come to me and say, hey, I have 10 use cases, I want to do them with AI. And I'm like, okay, let's check first whatever you have in your data governance part of size, in your data platform. Do you have quality? What are your tasks? Do you have a data protection officer? Or can you hire someone who can, give you some kind of guidance also on the legal topics, right? Because they are just, I want to jump on the AI train because it's cool and everybody's doing it. And even some software that is being sold out there from some startups, they don't have this security. They are not providing this. So I think now that the EU AI Act, is slowly coming into place, this is going to be good, for the consumers, at least in Europe. But in the rest of the world, it's kind of a wild west, let's say it this way.
Well, you triggered my mind when you say like UI Act. Can you elaborate more? Because I'm not sure if everyone that's gonna listen to us is aware of the AI Act, what it is, and maybe you have some tips for us in the audience. What is the what is your approach like to help these companies? What is it like a great approach to like secure your data, that your chatbot is not revealing all your insights of your database? What is their feasible approach? What do you think?
Yeah, let me start with the last part of your question, so I can go back to the Chevrolet example, right? So when I ask the people, what would you say to this chatbot to not reveal this information or not agree on this legal binding offer, what would you say? So you as a developer need to think further, right? Because the LLM, yeah, is there, but it's not us, right? It's not super smart. It's not gonna create their own safety guardrails. But at the end, you need to think about these yourself as a developer, as a team, and how you want to do. So, for example, one good question, what good answer, if you're a good prompt engineer, right, that you could have there could be, for example, I appreciate your interest, but however, I cannot agree to any legal binding. Please contact customer support, for example. And I start putting the engineers when I give this talk to try to think about further away. And I think that's one of the problems we have right now. People is not really thinking outside the box. They see something cool, they want to try it. So I ins the people, the engineers, to keep learning about prompt engineering, how to write the right prompts, how to understand, how to stop some legal implications there, how to not reveal information, get into data security, mask your data, do the data governance task as well. If you have already masked data and the PII access controls well defined in your data governance in the platform, will be less likely that you're going to get this kind of information filter. Those are some of the easy things that you can do. Also check with legal, what could be affecting and what is coming with the EU AI Act.
Is there one question, sorry to interrupt you, but like, is it really the case that so many people like connecting their chatbot as a RAG application to their databases, which contains so much PII or financial information? Is that really the case?
Yeah. And there is actually even examples from Delta Airlines, from some other data, and the remain from the remember from the state, from Gap, from Samsung, from some other companies that were doing these kind of things recklessly, I will say. So imagine these are big companies, but how many companies that are the smaller startups, we don't know that they are doing the same. I remember actually once, it was really funny because I'm also a mentor in the mentoring club for free. So I got actually a guy from Berlin, a CEO from a startup. And the secretary did everything for him, set up the call. So we were about to talk and he was like, yeah, I have this company, it's about marketing or something like that. And I want to do AI. And I was like, okay, it was the CEO, first of all, right? And I'm like, okay, what is your data stack? How many people do you have? I tried to understand what he's trying to do. Oh, no, we don't have a data. We have just a database. I don't know, like something old school. And I don't have a data engineer. But we want to start doing AI because we want to sell our business as an AI-driven service. So just imagine how many companies are like this? They don't even have a data engineer. The guy pretended with, at some point he told me, I want just one data engineer who will become a machine learning engineer, a data engineer, a data ops, and the whole thing. And also to release a product to the market like in 3 to 4 months. Tell me how much care they are going to take of all this information that is coming from the company and is marketing data, which might imply to have some PII data.
So basically, you want to have a drag and drop of dropping the AI agent based on this database, like this magic low. Let's go, please start.
Yeah. And this is a real thing that came to me, and I finished the call. The guy was not happy with me, of course, and I told him, sorry, but this is not the right way. I know you want to release this feature, but you need to think about this and this and this and that, la la la. He was, okay, thank you. But he looked really kind of upset with the question, right? I'm not there to make to make them happy. I'm there to mentor, right? To tell them what is the right thing to do. And I just spoke with some friends because I was laughing. I was between crying and laughing because I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, and this is not the first person who did something similar. Some other people also contact me with something pretty similar. And even big clients that I have had, big customers, they ask me for, I have these 20 use cases, and basically I want to make them happen without caring if you need. I ask questions, for example, do you need 100% accuracy? Because then if you get hallucinations, you're not going to get what you're needing. So maybe you need a RAG on top. And do you have the people to implement this? You might need also like a vectorized database. You might need maybe AI agents. You might need different types of technologies. If you don't have the people, if you don't have the skill set, if you don't have maybe the patience to scale an AI product, this might not be for you. So I did a workshop a couple of months ago, actually, like at the beginning of December. And I got 3 use cases for a company that I worked. And they thought that all of them could be resolved via LLM, just an LLM. And when you start to ask these questions during the workshop, right, like what's the level of accuracy that you need? Oh yeah, 100%. Well, maybe that's 60 or 80. And then I was doing thin slices, right? Okay, look, this is the functionalities that you want. So like maybe from 10 functionalities, 2 could be done only with LLMs, and the other ones, it's a lot more complex. And you don't even have data engineers. You have software engineers that are interested in doing some kind of AI. So how are we going to start here? Please tell me.
Yeah,
So-
in fact, I think that's sorry, Inga. So do you?
I just have the question because you also said something about patience and some companies, or do you think, because I had the feeling that a lot of companies know this problem, that they don't have good data and they want to change their data strategy or information strategy maybe also. And Mike, yes, too. So the problem in that case sometimes, I mean, it takes a lot of time, right? So how do you keep, or do you have any idea how to keep the motivation high? Because when you initiate a process like this, the result is often not direct, and not a direct value. How do you just keep the motivation high for the companies that want to implement something like that?
Actually, what I did with them was actually a 2-day workshop that I provide, but separately from kind of my Cosmo data. But with them, I had to do just 3 hours because they were really squared in the sense of, no, we want this and this and this and that. And I just wanted to show them, how difficult it will be. So we took the use cases from the hackathon. Usually I don't do that. I rather, to come fresh, have some ideas. We involve management, we involve technical people, and we'll involve end users to try to get the most value out of it, to understand what's the business value of this use case. And what we did basically was, with the case that they already have, we took some end users, some managers, some technical people, and we started to divide each one's, in pieces. So what I recommended them, okay, we had 3 use cases. Each one has this amount of, let's say, sub use cases. So this one is really complicated, this is mid-complicated, and this is super easy. My recommendation is to start with this, but I see most value on the middle one, which is so complicated. So my recommendation is start with this one, because you have maybe 3 or 4 cases that might be able to be resolved with LLMs, like automatic translation, for example. That's super good. Or rewrite requirements to be more clear, let's say, right? But the other ones, you might need to invest in your people to be able to, do this, or maybe invest in the quality of the data you're having, because so sometimes it's not even about AI. You need to do business process management. And we even divided that, like what could be resolved with just software engineering. Sometimes you don't even need AI. What could be resolved with AI, and what could be resolved with business process management. And this is when you show them these during the workshop, when you are working together, they are like, okay. So yeah, I want to do AI. Maybe I do something silly and simple. So I have my AI there, and my manager will see it and will be happy. But then they can work also in improving other processes if they want to scale, because otherwise they will find a hardcore wall in front of them at the end. So it's better to start with something simple, but then scale and know that you have to do the change. And that kind of helps to them to understand, because if I come to them like immediately and I'm like, no, this is not going to work, they are going to be super frustrated.
Absolutely, I agree. It's scaling up is key, and for that you have. I think that probably fully aligned with what you say. The problem is that many companies try to embrace AI in a stage that they are not mature enough. So assessing maturity is key. Just to be aware where you are. If you want to go there, you have to follow several steps. You cannot go in a step. Magic is not existing anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So the second part of the question, because we got a little bit, moved to other topic about the EU AI Act. Well, basically, in general, my thoughts are like, right now, the regulatory landscape around the world is really complicated, because there is global regulatory fragmentation. So it's by areas. And for example, a company who has a filial here in EU will have to comply whatever it comes from the States or from South America or from somewhere else, or the differences between what is explainability and transparency will change across areas. For example, one of the biggest auto companies here in Germany have their AI discovery for innovation with cars in the US, because it's less complicated to innovate here in Germany. So you see the differences, how they have to even outsource that work somewhere else so they can keep innovating, because this kind of tied up, a little bit the innovation and things that they can do. Also, the explainability and transparency, like the regulations like the GDPR, require a lot of explanations for the AI decisions, what is challenging, for example, for the black box models that I mentioned. So these models that you ask something, but you're not able to explain how it made the decision. It needs to be gone, otherwise, I mean, either how to explain it, and there are some software who claims that actually they now understand how they are explained, these black box models. I don't know if they are really believable or not. That we will see, I guess. But my recommendation to all the people is just working in white box models that you can understand how the decision trees are being managed, instead of going there. I know it might be cooler. They might create some other kind of decisions that are more bold or interesting or something, but why risk it, right? If you're going to be tied to some monetary exchange. You have also about the data privacy and security, for example, GDPR, CCPA, it requires a strong security measures and proper use. And then, of course, regarding the bias and fairness requirements, which is something that it's quite weird out, right now with the models. So we need these regulations, and that's how these kind of regulations were born. So, for example, for Brazil, there is the legal framework for artificial intelligence. China also is having one, despite the DeepSeek, drama going on now. They are actually working in a really good AI regulation. Of course, we have ours for the EU AI Act. G7 also is having one with the Hiroshima Process International Guiding Principles for AI. UK is writing a white paper. It's not exactly a regulation, but that might become a regulation as well, pro innovation on AI. And of course, the EU, the US with the executive order on safe, secure, and trustworthy artificial intelligence. But, that might be complicated nowadays. But in general, to give you a quick overview, so actually the EU AI Act, I will say that is one of the most comprehensive AI regulations to date, because it has basically everything that you need, like to ensure safe, ethical, and transparent AI in general. It divides the AI system into different categories, which are minimal, limited, high, and unacceptable. And basically, as a data engineers or people in data, it's essential that we understand what's going on here to be able to work on it, right? So you have risk categorizations, but you also have to take care of the data quality, to do the transparency and monitoring. And for example, something as simple like something that is unacceptable in the risk, of the EU AI Act is surveillance with biometric ID. Something that happens very often, like in Asia, for example. This is the bread and butter there. This is something that cannot be done here in the EU. A high risk example will be AI for hiring, which is something that is still happening now, but hasn't been banned yet, where you basically, like for example, Amazon, when they were hiring people, they use a lot of data to train the model that were for men, because most engineers are men, right? And then they were banned all the women who were in the CVs. So that was a big incident with Amazon that happened with that model. So now this is something that is going to be banned as a high risk here. Same as for example, the credit scoring. You cannot do it with AI. I don't know how it's been. I think in Germany we are a little bit slower on that, but in other countries they are kind of working to move faster on these topics. For the limited, I can give you an example like the deepfake content, like these AI generated images or videos that should always include this disclosure, like made by AI. Otherwise, this is you can get also a fine if it doesn't happen. And then of course you have the minimal. For example, let's say spam filters, right? Or this kind of AI powered search engines, or these kind of things are going to be a minimal. And impact on companies, for example, I think this is going to cause problems for OpenAI, of course, for Tesla, for Google, for Facebook here in the EU, for Instagram, because you get a lot of content with fake models, for example. Even now for the elections that are happening here in Germany, there is a lot of content generated via AI. This is going to be completely prohibited. This is going to cause huge fines. Something like that could be 30 million euros or 6% of the global turnover of that company, because that's a severe non-compliance. And for something like this, like for something like the chatbots or the generated text or art, this is going to be a 20 million one, or 4% global turnover for all these failures in data governance or transparency or biases. So this is no joke, right? This is huge amount of money.
So there are big incentives like for establishing an AI governance, because like if you have the opportunity between like paying 6% of your annual turnover versus having a little AI office, usually is for the AI office, usually women. So just I think the incentive is quite clear. Governance driving it, like make an AI office. What is your recommendation like for some decision makers that are like, okay, now I have to set up an AI office. Can I reuse my existing data office, or should I really build up something in parallel to that? Or can I also maybe leverage again my data catalogs that exist in the company, which cost maybe I have some classification of the catalog already? Do you see there any synergies, or what would you recommend to your clients?
That's for sure. I mean, that you can reuse your data catalog. I'm expecting already them to have some classifications, but usually it's not the case.
Depends on the
Um,
tool.
yeah, I would love that in a perfect world full of unicorns that will happen. But yeah, we know it's not happening. Actually, if you already have a data protection officer, that's perfect, because what you need to do is start a conversation with them. usually you won't speak the same language, but at least you are, hey, would you help me with the EU AI Act? Can you give me a summary of these laws and how these will impact, and they can give you, for example, what's the fine for this, what's the fine for that, and you have a little bit something as a head of data, as a CDO, as a manager, right, to understand how this is going to impact in the team, so you can go in and speak with your team in tech language. We need to change this. We need to do masking. We need to treat PII information differently. We cannot have, okay, let's do an assessment. How many black models do we have right now? And start these conversations. So if you already have someone there, it's great. If you don't have, my recommendation is not to hire an AI coach or something, but to hire a lawyer who can tell you a little bit about this law so you understand. And hopefully you already have a data person in your company who can sit with this person and talk, right? Hopefully. Otherwise, you can always hire me. But, or someone like me, with the knowledge on this topic who can guide you and can do an assessment, because this is important. Also, AI readiness assessment. I, for example, apply a questionnaire and do some interviews internally, so I can assess how is the governance in general, the data platform, and then to see, okay, are you really ready for AI or not? What is missing and what is more critical? What exactly is going to give them a fine in the next 6 months, and what can be done secondary, something like that.
And there are some incentives. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
So I think we can talk about those topics like hours, but I think it's for today. It's pretty cool, and thank you for the talk, Amy. It was really interesting, and thank you also, Tim. Thank you, David, for your insights. So we will see us at the next podcast, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and also LinkedIn. And we will see us the next time. So thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you all.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye.